Hey guys, Sterling here, coming at you with another Bleach What If, and throughout the history of storytelling, at least when it comes to anime or manga, if the protagonist is extremely awesome and badass, then the chances are they have a father that's equally as cool and equally as badass. So today, I want to talk about two criminally underused, amazingly powerful anime dads, Isshin Kurosaki and Ryuken Ishida. Specifically, I want to flesh out what would happen if these two were more present in the final arc of the manga. How would they fight? What interactions would they have? What techniques would they use? We have Ryuken, an extremely strong Quincy, and Isshin, an immensely powerful Shinigami. There is so much to discuss here, so sit back as we explore what if Isshin and Ryuken fought in the 1,000-Year Blood War. Now, before we dive in, I encourage you to slash that like button, slash that subscribe button, and as always, if you have an idea for a future what if, drop it in the comments below. I'd love to make it happen. I'm always extremely excited to jump in the comment sections and interact with you guys. So with all that being said, let's get started. So as far as the setup goes for the video, this one's pretty simple. We just insert them in somewhere. I would actually like to set this up in two different segments. One where we explore a scenario where these two get to fight some sternritter and interact with characters in the second invasion, and then a second scenario where we can explore these guys being more involved in the battles at Varvelt. For example, maybe Ryuken and Uryu versus Hashwolf perhaps, or Isshin battling a member of the Schutzstaffel, or maybe even Isshin aiding Ichigo. Either way, it's going to be a ton of fun. We can flesh out what kind of techniques these guys use. I cannot wait to talk about Isshin's Bankai. Guys, it's going to be a ton of fun. So let's get right into scenario one. Our story starts off not in Soul Society, not at the Vandenreich Palace, but in Kurakura Town, where Isshin and Ryuken have met up under the roof of the Kurosaki Clinic to discuss the events taking place in the Serete. So you're telling me you practice medicine here? Ryuken says to Isshin in a somewhat sarcastic tone. All right, guys, I got to step in for a second because although this meeting would be for a very serious reason, Ryuken would definitely say something about the clinic because, you have to, as far as, caliber of doctor goes, Ryuken's on a whole different level. He runs one of the best hospitals in Japan, at least in Kurakura Town, and he's a world-renowned doctor. When it comes to medical skills, it's night and day. But I still kind of find that funny. I think Ryuken would definitely say something about the clinic, and Isshin, he gets by with the skills he knows. He's able to run a pretty successful clinic, but nowhere near the type of establishment that Ryuken's running. It's crazy to think how similar these guys are, yet totally different at the same time. Obviously, one's a Quincy and one's a Soul Reaper, but their dynamic is actually pretty cool. Isshin saved Masaki, and I think Ryuken obviously is extremely thankful for that. And I think he did love Masaki, regardless of whether it was a fixed marriage or not. I think he actually did love her. Anyways, that's regardless, but you have to remember, both these men lost their wives the day that Yhwach was first revived, with the Ashwelin. So, they both felt that extreme loss, and obviously Ryuken, he went to work right away, and obviously there's going to be spoilers in this video, but he went to work right away on the Still Silver Arrow to the point where he was doing an autopsy on his wife, probably the day that the Ashwelin took her from him. This conversation would be pretty serious. These guys would be we know, you heard what's going on up in Serete, the Quincy's have already invaded once, and, you gotta remember, Ryuken, he's got some, and Isshin, they've got some hatred probably for this guy in their heart, because like I said, he took their wives, but anyways, he would be I found a way to do it, Isshin, and Isshin would be what do you mean? He's I found a way to take down the Quincy Messiah. I can take down Yhwach, and he would explain the Still Silver Arrow, and then we could finally get some setup for that, so then it wasn't just thrown into anywhere. Anyways, the conversation would be extremely serious, and he would be Uryu's gone. He's in Soul Society. I don't know exactly what he's doing. I think he's on some sort of like crazy suicide mission to take out the Quincy, but he feels like everything is on his shoulders and like, we gotta go help him. Like, Isshin, your son's up there too. Like, we can't just sit here in Kurokura Town. Like, we have to go and do something. And so these two would join forces wanting to go and help or protect their sons, and they would make their way to Serete, probably with the help of Uehara, and that's when they would find out, like, Kisuke'd be like, guys, the second invasion's begun, and, like, I'll take you there, but, like, be ready, because it is not pretty. This is also more than likely where Uehara would give Isshin one of the hollow pills to make sure his Bankai could not be stolen. Our two stars of this what if would make it to the Serete and be completely shocked. The once feudal era aesthetic of the Serete has been completely transformed into an all-out war zone. Icy cathedrals litter the landscape. Ryuken would be like, geez, like, you Soul Reapers lost the only advantage you have? Like, you lost Serete? Like, are you kidding me? Like, he would just be like shaking his head, and then like Isshin, his jaw would be dropped. Like, you have to keep in mind, he hasn't been to Soul Society or Serete in years, and to like be back and see it like this, like, he'd be like, man, like, it's worse than Uehara said. Like, it's as bad as he said, like, worse. We got to get to work. So yeah, they'd both be on a mission, and they would both be on an objective to find their sons and aid them in any way, or possibly give them the Still Silver Arrow. So this is where things get really interesting and really fun. So I think two things are going to be happening at once. Obviously, we'll have Ryuken and Isshin traversing through Serete, trying to find their sons. But at the same time, I think Yhwach would sense Ryuken entering Serete and be like, oh, okay, this is the perfect opportunity. Uryu, like, when your dad gets here, when he ultimately makes it to us, when he makes it to this palace, you need to recruit him to our side. And if you can't do that, you need to prove your loyalty and take your father out, like, right in front of me. Now, I would say that Yhwach and Uryu would go directly to Isshin and Ryuken, but for the sake of this what if, I want to say that they run into a couple of sternritter on their way to Yhwach and Uryu. So let's say they run into Robert Akatron and Baz-B. And guys, like I said, this is where things get really fun, and why I could not wait to talk about these guys, because these guys never got a proper battle in the series. So now we get to see how they would do against a couple of sternritter. I think just the dialogue would be awesome. Like, you'd have Baz-B or Robert Akatron being like, hey, like, you're one of us. Like, are you going to join our side? Like, it'd be smart if you did. Like, take a look around. Like, better join our side, buddy. And like, you know, there'd be like they'd be trying to extend an olive branch, and Ryuken would be like, shut up. Like, I don't want to hear any of it. Like, you have to look at it this way. This man didn't want anything to do with the Sternritter, the Vandenreich, the Quincy's. Like, his dad, Soken, was a terrible father. Like, yeah, he was a great grandpa to Uryu, but he was a terrible dad to Ryuken. Anyways, that's besides the point. I think Ryuken would be like, no, shut up. Like, where's my son? Either take me to him, or like, we're going to take you guys down. So seeing that their attempts at swaying Ryuken are completely pointless, the battle would commence, and boy, this would be amazing to see, what we'd all wanted to see from these characters. A true, real battle against opponents that mean something. So we would have Isshin against Baz-B, and we would have Ryuken against Robert Akatron. I think these matchups are a ton of fun. We've got a Quincy on Quincy battle, and then obviously we've got two fire style fighters. We've got Isshin with his fire style Zanpakuto, and we've got Baz-B with his fire type Shrift. And so I'm no power scaler. I just like to work out how I think these battles would work out. I leave the power scaling to you guys down in the comments. But wouldn't these battles be a ton of fun? First, let's talk about Isshin versus Baz-B. You've got an awesome battle on your hands here. I've always appreciated Baz-B's shrift with the burner fingers. And then you've got Isshin with his mysterious unknown Bankai. So I imagine the battle would begin and the dialogue between these two would be incredible. You know, you'd have Baz-B being like, oh, so you're the potential threat's dad. Like, what do I get for taking you out? Like, if I drag you to Yhwach, like, you know, I'll gain your majesty's trust just like that. Anyways, I think the dialogue would be extremely witty. You know, you'd have Isshin being like, all right, like, go ahead and try. And guys, Isshin's an extremely strong Shinigami. Like, tell me in the comments below, how strong do you guys think Isshin is? I mean, he was able to flick away an extremely strong Hogyoku amped Aizen. Now, whether or not that was Aikido or some sort of special technique, he still did it. So, like, my point being is Isshin is strong, and I think this battle would be a ton of fun. So they'd be going at it. Isshin would be using his Shikai, and eventually he'd be like, okay, like, this guy's strong. Like, these burner fingers, like, I can hardly even block them. Like, my Kido's hardly blocking them. Like, when I hit him with my Zanpakuto, like, my fire's barely negating them. Like, I'm going to have to go into Bankai. And guys, this is where I want to discuss some things. What do you think Isshin's Bankai is? Now, before I figured out what Old Man Yama's Bankai was, I always, like, when Isshin was first introduced, my first thought was like, this guy's got to have a Bankai. I wonder what it is. And so as a kid, I thought, like, he'd just be engulfed in fire. But, like, obviously, reading on and finding out that what Yama's Bankai is, like, that idea went away. But I want to know down in the comments, guys, what do you think his Bankai is? Like, for this video, I want to use the idea of, like, he gets, you know, fire wings like Daigon Hirimaru, but instead of ice, it's fire. And then let's give him two massive great swords engulfed in fire where he can launch massive Getsuga Tenchos and Getsuga Jushos just flame style. So, you know, that could give a little foreshadowing to what Ichigo's new technique is with his dual swords. Anyways, so just imagine a massive, like, Fire X, like, ripping through Serete, disintegrating everything in its path. I mean, now, guys, keep in mind, this is just an idea because none of us actually know what Isshin's Bankai is. But just imagine how cool that would be. Now, guys, it could be something, it could be something totally different. Maybe he commands, like, a massive, like, four-headed fire dragon or something. Who knows? But I want to know down in the comments below. I want to hear your guys' idea for Isshin's Bankai and what it would be and how powerful he would be with this Bankai. So yeah, you'd have an Isshin and a Baz-B going at it. Isshin forced to activate his Bankai, and that's when the battle would be getting really fun. Meanwhile, we'd have Ryuken and Robert Akatron going at it in battle as well. And I find this battle extremely interesting because it's Quincy versus Quincy warfare. Now, as far as Ryuken's strength goes, like I've said many times, I'm not a power scaler, but we know what he is. He's a Quincy, and a very strong Quincy at that. He probably knows all the Quincy techniques and can utilize them very well. I would say that Ryuken is one of the smarter characters in Bleach, and on the battlefield, he'd probably have a great strategy, go into the fight, like, you know, pointing everything out, like, okay, we've got this here and this here. Let's try to utilize this. I mean, he is a doctor, so he's probably methodical. Anyways, base to base, I think Ryuken would probably even be faster than Robert. Now, I know that is kind of a hot take because Robert was able to keep up with Kuraku, and Kuraku's flash step is beyond fast. Anyways, my point being is that I think Ryuken would be able to take Robert. But when it came to Robert utilizing his Volstanding, that's where Ryuken, I believe, would begin to be pressed, okay? I also think the dialogue between these characters would be great. You'd have Robert, questioning Ryuken, like, why don't you just join us? Like, it's kind of like silly for you and futile for you to like even fight this battle. Like, even if you do make it past me, like, there's no way that you're making it past your son and Master Yhwach. So yeah, Isshin would be on the ropes battling Robert, and it's not because Ryuken's weak, it's just because the Quincy Volstanding is that strong. Now, in a lot of my videos, I come in and I say, so-and-so, he'd decimate that sternritter, he'd decimate this sternritter, but like, that doesn't mean that I don't think the sternritter are extremely strong. Even someone like Robert Akatron would be a very formidable Quincy. I mean, he's captain level. So me just saying that Ryuken could battle with a captain level character is giving Ryuken a ton of credit, I think. Now, that being said, between the battle between these two, I think Ryuken would end up having to do something to try to get the upper hand. So we know Ryuken has access to Blute, all the Quincy defensive techniques and offensive techniques. So if he wasn't faster than Robert and couldn't snipe him out, this is how I see a battle just with any sternritter, period. If Ryuken was battling a sternritter, I think, he'd be... Ryuken's always the best dressed in the room, so he'd be wearing that suit, and I think he'd begin to like roll his suit sleeve up, unbutton it, and he'd reveal the glove that gives him utilization to a lech steel, and you'd get a flashback of him training, and he'd be like, I knew I'd come into this battle and be at the disadvantage. I knew you guys would have a Shrift. I knew you'd have a Volstanding. So let's see how you do against what you call primitive technology, a lech steel. And he would break the glove, the little deal on the glove, and a ton of power, the power would just be flowing off Ryuken, and he'd be in an incredible lech steel form. And guys, I know this is sounding fan fiction-y, but if he were to battle in Sarete against the sternritter, he would have to activate a lech steel to be able to fight a sternritter with a Volstanding. But how fun would this be to see? Ryuken would be manipulating Reishi all around him, and he'd just bring back a massive arrow and just wipe Robert Akatron out, like wipe him out completely. And he'd look over at Isshin, and Isshin would be like, don't worry about me, like I'm fine, like you need to make your way to your son in Yhwach. And guys, you can hear my voice, I'm getting more excited, but like I always treat these discussions like I'm talking with friends, because I am. I have a ton of fun having these discussions with you guys. Anyway, so you would have a lech steel Ryuken racing towards Yhwach and Uryu, and he'd be on a time limit because he's going to run out of power, but he's wanting to make it to Yhwach and at least try to shoot off some sort of like last ditch final attack to try to destroy Yhwach. And like, I'm getting excited because this would be a ton of fun, because he'd be like, Isshin's fine, he's battling Baz-B, and like, as far as the Baz-B versus Isshin battle, like we're going to include Isshin a little bit more in the second scenario, but I do think Isshin could handle Baz-B, especially with his Bankai. Now, depending on how long that would take, who knows? But as far as this what-if scenario goes, he would end up beating Baz-B and end up catching up with Ryuken down the line, but still, ton of fun. Oh man, the way I got to breathing and huffing and puffing on that last segment, you would have thought I was the one fighting the sternritter. But guys, just a little insight on when I'm making these videos. Sometimes like I get up out of my chair and like I just get really into it. But guys, it just goes to show how much fun these videos are and like how passionate I am about Bleach. But anyways, guys, back to the story. We've got a lech steel Ryuken barreling his way through Sarete. And guys, I want to know down in the comments below, how strong do you think this hypothetical lech steel Ryuken would be? Now, obviously, it's going to be stronger than the Uryu that we saw in Soul Society that used the Lech Steel form, because obviously Ryuken's a much stronger Quincy than Uryu was at that time. So guys, I want to know, like, hypothetically, on his, like, he's barreling through Sarite on his way to Uryu and Yhwach, and like, what if he ran into other sternritter? Like, it would be an extremely emotional little segment, because Ryuken would be doing anything he could to make it to Yhwach and Uryu, and he knows he'd be on a time limit. So like, he would be launching just massive reishi bows. I mean, I'm telling you, like, in the way Ryuken strategizes, I think he'd be able to make his way through Sarite and actually get to Yhwach and Uryu. And guys, that's where the fun truly, truly starts. Now, a lot of you are probably saying, like, Sterling, like, what if Lech Steel Ryuken runs into, like, the Superstar or Bambietta or even Asnot? And I can entertain you for a second. Let's say Lech Steel Ryuken had to go through any three of these Sternritter. Now, battling against James the Superstar, I honestly think that in this form, this Lech Steel form, Ryuken would have the destructive capability to actually destroy the Superstar, and I think he's smart enough to figure out the whole dynamic between James and the Superstar. And so I think he would get past James. It'd be a hard battle. And then as far as Bambietta goes, do you guys remember something called the Ginto? And they were the little reishi capsules that Uryu utilized a ton in Wako Mundo. Well, imagine Bambietta goes to throw her reishi that turns things into bombs at Lech Steel Ryuken. What if he came prepared and had some of these Ginto reishi capturing capsules with him, and he used it similar to how Mayuri was able to combat the explode, and he like captured the reishi in those little Ginto things and then like either threw it back at her or like saved it for the next Sternritter he encountered. And anyways, I think that would be a really fun fight to see. Anyways, tell me in the comments below as far as if you agree with my last two comments. Now, as far as Asnot and the Fear, I mean, that's a really hard build. That's a really hard shrift to go up against. So I think Ryuken would probably fall to Asnot. Now, Asnot's holy form. I mean, Asnot's an extremely strong Sternritter. So, like, no disrespect to Ryuken there. But I do think he would have some trouble with Asnot for sure. But anyways, for the sake of the what if, we're going to go ahead, like I said, and say that he made it to Yhwach and Uryu. And so, yes, a battered and bruised Lech Steel Ryuken would make it to the top of the palace, where he would finally confront Yhwach and Uryu. And, like, Yhwach would be like, join us. Like, you're strong. Like, look at you. Like, I can bring back your Quincy powers after your Lech Steel fails you and takes your Quincy powers. Like, this is futile. Like, you can't beat me. Like, your son's already joined me. And, like, Ryuken would be like, dude, and, like, he wouldn't say a whole lot, but, like, in his head, he'd be like, the stuff you've done, like, the grief you've caused my family, like, you took my wife from me, like, I'm here to destroy you and take my son back. Anyway, so, like, either he would send a massive attack at Yhwach and his Lech Steel powers would run out right there, or Uryu would be forced to have to battle his father to prove his loyalty. And who knows, maybe that would be part of Ryuken's plan as well. Maybe he's like, okay, I'm going to attempt to take out Yhwach, but if I can't, then I can at least, like, fortify my son's, like, fake alias as far as, like, being part of the Sternritter. Like, I can fortify that whole story and, like, prove to Yhwach that, or you can prove to Yhwach that my son's loyal. Anyways, so maybe as far as that goes, maybe he would end up battling with Uryu, like, make it look like a real battle. We could maybe see Uryu's Volsh standing against Ryuken's Lech Steel. Like, oh my goodness, as a Bleach fan, like, how much fun would that be? We could see Uryu, like, utilize the antithesis, and, like, these father and son, they would be trying to, like, put on a fake battle because, like, both of them, like, know where they're coming from. Like, Ryuken's, like, kind of figured out at this point, like, okay, Uryu's trying to infiltrate them. So, like I said, he would maybe try to help, like, fortify that relationship with Yhwach and Uryu, like, if he couldn't take him down with, like, a big final attack. But anyways, I really like the idea of, like, these two battling, like, kind of a fake fight. We'd still get to see what both of them, like, had to offer. It'd be a lot of fun. Like, you could see both of the Quincy's, like, as far as Uryu and Ryuken, utilizing all sorts of different Quincy techniques. So, like, the Sank Swagger, like, the best defensive Quincy technique. You could see them both using blue. Obviously, they'd be bouncing around the battlefield using here in Kyaku, like the Quincy's high-speed movement technique. Anyways, it would be insanely fun to see. Like, it would be a work of art. Like, tell me in the comments down below, guys, what would you think of a hypothetical battle like this? Anyways, eventually Ryuken's Let Steel would run out, and guys, let's face it, like, Ryuken would be strong in this form, but there's no way he'd even be able to put a scratch on Yhwach. And like I said, eventually his Let Steel would run out and he'd be left there burnt out. He would not have his Quincy abilities anymore. And Yhwach would be like, this was your fate. Like, you didn't join us. Like, Uryu, go ahead and take him out. And once again, guys, like I said, this would be extremely emotional, all of this. Like, the father-son exchange, and like, Ryuken would be like, son, like, at least take me out with your Quincy arrow and like shoot me in the heart. And like, guys, this is going to come into play here in just a little bit. But like, so Ryuken would say that, and Uryu would have to send a Quincy arrow straight into his father's heart, leaving Ryuken left for dead, per se. And then Uryu would prove his allegiance, and Yhwach and Uryu would make their way up into the royal palace, and then obviously go on to like battle the royal guard and so on and so forth. And there you would have Ryuken like lying there. You'd think he was dead, and next thing you would know, he'd have his Quincy powers back, and it'd be like, what the heck? Well, what really happened is Uryu would have hit him right in the heart, the 9 millimeters away from the heart, to like reignite his Quincy abilities, just like Ryuken did for Uryu after the Soul Society arc. I think that would be extremely cool. And like I said, I know this is getting a little outlandish and a little fan fiction-y, but that would be insane. All of a sudden, Ryuken would get his power back, and it would flash back like that during the exchange, Isshin and Uryu were like speaking to each other, and Ryuken was able to like hand off the still silver arrow and be like, here, use this to beat him. Like, I thought maybe I could take him down in a Let Steel form. It didn't work. Now it's all up to you. But like, wouldn't that be quite the twist? Like, Uryu reigniting his father's powers, you know, after he'd utilized this hypothetical Let Steel, kind of bringing everything full circle. Like, Ryuken did it for him after the Soul Society arc, and then he'd do it for Ryuken after this. Anyways, guys, that, you know, we'd still have Isshin battling Baz-B, and that battle would officially end, and, you know, like I said, they would catch up, and Ryuken would tell Isshin about everything, and then who knows, maybe they would stay there and, like, lick their wounds, or maybe they'd end up following Uryu and Yhwach up to the royal palace to like make sure everything went smoothly. But like, that's kind of wrapping up scenario 1. I think that's kind of how that's how I would see it. That's how my Bleach brain puts it together. But man, that was already a ton of fun, guys. We're like 28 minutes in and we haven't even got to scenario 2. But like, what do you think about scenario 1? Was that fun? Do you think Ryuken would utilize a Let Steel? What do you think Isshin's Bankai would be? Like I said, I want to know down in the comments below. And so now that we've wrapped that up, let's go ahead and transition into scenario number 2, where these two actually, they don't even touch the second invasion. They just show up at Varveld after the invasion of the royal palace has already happened. So let's get right into that. So in this second scenario, we're just going to go ahead and throw Isshin and Ryuken right into the battles at the Royal Palace. So all the battles between the Schutzstaffel are going on. You've got the Gote 13 fighting Gerard Valkyrie. You've got Uehara battling Askin. You've got Mayuri battling Pernida, and you've got Uryu battling Hashwolf. So obviously, we're going to go ahead and throw Ryuken into the Uryu and Hashwolf battle, but I thought it would be fun to go ahead and throw Isshin into the Gerard Valkyrie battle. And hear me out. So as far as these characters go, Isshin is clearly the stronger of the two. So, like, as far as any Ryuken fans, like anyone that thinks he'd have a huge part as far as in the Royal Palace battles, probably not. Unless he were to, obviously, like I said, utilize some sort of Lech steel, like in the second scenario. But still, even at that, the Royal Guard members are just so strong. Out of the two of these What If characters, Isshin is going to have a much better chance against any of the Schutzstaffel. And this is where this second scenario, this What If, gets extremely fun. So we'll get back to as far as Ryuken, Hashwolf, and Uryu. Like, we're going to say that these two What If characters go ahead and split up once they get to the Royal Palace. You know, Isshin's like, Ryuken, go help your boy. I'm going to look around for my son. And anyways, as Isshin's looking around for Ichigo, maybe he stumbles into the Gotei 13 as they're battling Gerard Valkyrie. And so anyways, this is where we would get Isshin obviously having to activate his Bankai right away, but like I've mentioned many times in this video, Isshin's an extremely strong Shinigami. He's able to kind of flick away a Hogyoku amped Aizen. Not saying like that's how strong Isshin is as strong as Aizen in that form, but still, he's able to somewhat combat Aizen in that form, which is an incredible feat. So anyways, I'm getting off topic. As far as Isshin battling Gerard Valkyrie, he activates his Bankai, and like as far as we talked about a Bankai, whatever your imagination, as far as however you see Isshin's Bankai, it's not going to work against Gerard. I'm sorry, like Isshin's strong, but like even Kinpachi's Bankai wasn't able to totally destroy Gerard. So hear me out. I had this crazy idea for Isshin. And this is, like I said, this is where things get a little bit fan fiction-y, but bear with me. Do we even know, like, could Isshin possibly use a version of the final Getsugo Tensho? And hear me out. Like, when he's telling Ichigo about it, he kind of implies that it's like an inherited technique, like that, because he speaks about his sword, like when he had that conversation with his sword. So hypothetically, going off that, Isshin would have access to kind of like a pseudo Mugetsu form. And guys, wouldn't that be absolutely insane? So we've got the Gotei 13 members that are battling Gerard Valkyrie, and Isshin joins the crew. Like I said, he activates his Bankai. That doesn't work, and then so he kind of looks at all the other Shinigami, and they're like, man, like, you kind of came out of nowhere, like Ichigo's dad. Like, I guess let's see what you got. And he's like, well, you're about to, and guys, stay out of my way too, because I've never used this technique. Like, it's gonna cause quite a bit of damage, and who knows, I might even lose my life after I use this technique. Who knows? But I know I'll lose my powers. Anyways, so what Isshin does is he activates a version of the final Getsugo Tensho and enters, like I said, a pseudo like fire version of the Mugetsu form. Like I said, it's getting fan fiction-y, but how fun would something like that be to see? Like, guys, tell me in the comments below, do you think Isshin had or would have access to a form like I'm referring to? It makes sense according to what we've learned in the show. Anyways, if I'm missing something and like they came out and said like in a light novel somewhere that like that wouldn't work and like completely cancel that out, then tell me. But like, I think that would be a ton of fun. Anyways, so we've got Isshin in his final Getsugo Tensho like fire form, getting ready to go all out at Gerard Valkyrie and try to take out that Quincy Cross that keeps allowing him to regenerate. And like, that's the question, like, could he do it in this form? Would he have enough destructive capability to take out that cross? Anyways, guys, it's such a fun little experiment to run in your head. Like, first, would Isshin even have access to this form? And then second, how strong would this form be and what would it look like? Like, I imagine his hair would kind of grow like Ichigo's. He'd be surrounded in some type of flame. Anyways, I think it's one of Bleach's biggest mysteries. Anyways, like I said, unless they've revealed it somewhere else, let me know. But I think that would be a lot of fun. Do you guys think he could do it? Like I said, tell me down in the comments below. I'd love to know, and I'd love to discuss that. Now I want to switch over to Ryuken, Hashwolf, and Uryu. And like I said, when it comes to power, Ryuken's not going to be able to keep up with any of these guys, but obviously he has the very, very important role of giving Uryu the still silver. So all that would happen, and like more or less Ryuken would just kind of be there to like look after his son. Who knows? Maybe he would like he may even start getting worried and be like, Uryu, like leave. Like this isn't worth it. Like I know I haven't been like the best dad in the world, but like, let's just get out of here. Like, whatever happens, happens, but like, it's not worth throwing your life away. Who knows? Like, ultimately, I know Ryuken hasn't been the best dad, but he's still a dad. And deep down, there's love for Uryu there, obviously, or he wouldn't even have come to Uryu's aid in the first place. Anyways, he brings the still silver bullet and everything goes as planned as far as that. Same as in the story. But you'd still get some incredible dialogue between Uryu and his dad. And like, I think it'd be wholesome. I think it'd be great to see. I really do wish that these two characters would have been more in, like, obviously they play pivotal roles in the story and like they do their job and like I said, they play very important roles. But man, I would have loved to see these guys battle actual other like strong, formidable characters in the story. Anyways, guys, that's why there's YouTubers like me, so we can make these Bleach what ifs. I did not expect this video to be almost 40 minutes long, but boy, it's been a blast. I'd love to know all your thoughts, guys. As far as the audio goes for this video, I'm not even doing this in Anime Bar Studios. I'm doing it in a little makeshift area because I don't know if any of you saw my post, but we're revamping all the audio, all the cameras, pretty much setting up a professional setup so I can bring you guys quality videos. I'm teaching myself more about editing every day, so the videos are going to keep getting better. These what ifs are literally the highlight of my week. I want to stick to an every week or at least every 10-day upload schedule for you guys, because I can't go any longer than that without talking Bleach with you guys. We're almost 1,000 strong. Can you believe that? Like, the ultimate goal for this channel is to be doing high quality what ifs, like where we do our discussion like we do in most of our videos, but then at the end, I want to fund an special fan-made animation. Like, I have somewhat of an animation background and have friends in the animation departments. Anyways, we could make our own little Bleach what ifs come to life. Like, how incredible would that be? Anyways, like I said, for anyone that has problems with the audio of this what if, it's going to be a lot better in the next one. Like I said, I just couldn't go any longer without talking Bleach with you guys. I want to know down in the comments below, how do you think hypothetical battles between the sternritter and Isshin and Ryuken would go? Like, do you agree with me, or do you think they're far stronger than what I said, or do you think they're far weaker? Like I said, give me a hard time if you think this what if was off the rails. I don't care. As long as we're discussing Bleach in the comments below, I'm happy and I'm having a blast, guys. So yeah, guys, we're kind of wrapping today's conversation up, but tell me what you thought in the comments below. And as always, if you have an idea for a future Bleach what if that you'd like to explore, then tell me in the comments below. This particular one was a little bit different than most because it was totally unscripted. Like I said, I'm not in my studio, but I just wanted to discuss a fun Bleach topic with you guys, because it's, like I said, one of my favorite things to do. Anyways, guys, until the next crazy off-the-rails Bleach what if, this is Sterling signing out, guys. Have a great weekend.